Hey everybody, welcome back to the Money Is Show, and today we have a special guest on the show, one of my good friends, Kemra, Northworthy, right here from, or recently right here from Utah. She just moved here from Seattle, Washington area. And look, I'm happy to have her on the show because a lot of you guys are real estate investors, you're entrepreneurs, but if you're a real estate investor right now, you know one of the harder things to do is to get over those stupid max rule of 10 houses on your FHA loans, and you cannot buy any more rentals unless you go get private money, and sometimes it's too expensive. Kemra's company, Bull Funding, you guys can check them out at bullfunding.com. Kemra's company specializes in private money, specialized for blanket loans. And so if you wanted her to come in and take over 10 of your houses or the portfolio of 8 houses, whatever you got, to allow you to go back to, get them off your credit report and get them go back to FHA to get more loans, this is what she specializes in. We're going to talk to her today about Bull Funding and how she landed this massive deal and how her niche marketing is putting her on the map right now. So on that note, you guys welcome Kemra on the show.
Hello. Thanks
for coming on the show. So short drive. First of all, what made you move from Washington? Because you recently moved here.
Right.
What made you move? You came down to an event.
I did. I came down a couple events. One in February for the AAPL for the President Circle. Then the next one was the Mastermind, Power Room Mastermind. And that's where I decided is a beautiful place.
Like, screw it, I'm moving.
All my friends knew about it. When I sent them pictures, they're like, she's moving there. And
because Washington's beautiful.
It is beautiful, but it rains a lot, and not to put Washington down or anything like that, but you know, it's the people are not as friendly there.
Yeah.
And to be really honest, is that the mask mandate and the vaccination
push you over the edge on it.
Yeah.
It's amazing what it's doing to country, people, families, all around the nation or the world. But we'll talk about in America in general. Like, you know, obviously recently we just had the family holidays, right? Mm-hmm. And fortunately for me, my whole family views the same way. And so for us, holidays are a great time because we all get to come in and be on the same page and voice our opinions on everything. But you know, I was thinking about it during the holidays. Like a lot of times, families can't do that. They can't come in and have a conversation because it's like literally going to cause an argument, a controversy, a fight over inside of a Christmas dinner. And it's amazing how much the mandates have, how many fights and arguments and ruin and holidays have happened and birthday parties and that's happened over these mass mandates. So I totally get it, man. So you moved down to Utah. The reason I say Washington's a beautiful place, I think that Washington, on a sunny day, is the #1 state in America.
Right.
I mean, as far as beauty.
Right.
I think that when you go out there, I lived out there for a little bit, and I travel there quite a bit, and I just think something about it to me is like so attractive. Now, the rain part doesn't actually bother me. The gray skies is what bothers me.
Right.
You know, because it's funny because a lot of states get more rain than Washington. It's just like if you actually go look it up, other states get more rain. It's just like when it rains in, say, Michigan is a state that gets more rain.
Right.
But when it rains in Michigan, it like pours and pours and pours. And Washington is more like a
drizzle.
Light mist that's
it's
just constantly kind of there, you know?
Yeah.
The gray sky is what does it for me.
Right.
Did you know that, last thing I'm going to tell you about Seattle, did you know that Washington is the #1 sales state, if you will? Out of all the states, Washington State sells more sunglasses than any other state in America.
Oh, really?
It's a random
That is
fact, and
funny.
it's just because of all the gray or whatever. Like people, as soon as the sun comes out, everybody goes outside.
That makes sense.
In Seattle, so it's a unique fact that now you can put in your knowledge bank of massive knowledge I've given you. Let's talk about Bull Funding. So this is a cool story, I think, because me and you met about a year ago, and we met at one of the power rooms. And about a year ago, you were doing funding a year ago, but what I would say was a very standard private lending loans that you were doing of funding fix and you still do this, but you were funding fix and flips. You were funding bridge loans and different small apartment deals and so forth. And it's kind of the private lending, hard money lending, whatever you want to call it. And that's what you're doing a year ago. And then today in the office when you came in, which is like when the last time I got an update, it was like a totally different concept. And I actually kind of went crazy on my phone and started texting like all my buddies, telling them what you got going on. So what I want to talk about is at Bull Funding, you have a thing called blanket loans. Let's talk about and help educate what are blanket loans, and then I want to talk about the value of blanket loans because it is a massive value for a lot of people that are in the need of it. So what is a blanket loan that you do?
A blanket loan is when you're taking more than one property, so 2 or more, however many, and then you're rolling them into one loan. It's a blanket loan. It covers it all up.
It's a blanket because it covers it all up into
right.
one big loan. There's, like anything in life or in business, there's pluses and there's minuses to it, right? But inside of this, a blanket loan, let's talk about the pluses, and I want to bring up some of the, let's say, possible negatives, and I want to talk about them. So inside of a blanket loan, you can take, whether it be 2 houses or 3 houses or 50 houses, it doesn't matter. And those could be those would be 50 separate loans or 5 separate loans, and then with 5 separate banks perhaps. And this is putting them all into one loan, one monthly payment that goes to one lender, and one loan now has 50 houses inside of it. What do you think is the biggest positive from doing it?
Well, you're removing all those homes off of your credit report and off of the conventional limits that you have, which is 10. You can get exceptions up to 14 depending on your net assets. But this removes it all out of there, so then it allows the investor to be able to go back out and buy back with, the conventional 3 or 5% down, and then be able to.
It's a massive thing because if you go through an FHA type loan, which is not anything to do with the blanket loans, this FHA kind of backed, which I'm not FHA loans, but they're called FHA loans, but FHA backed loans, Fannie Mae backed loans. But if you go along with that process, they have certain regulations you have to meet. One of the great ones is it's like 3% down, 5% down on a house that you can buy. Versus if you go to like a rental property, say with private lending or whatever, normally it's 20% down to be able to go get a down payment for one of those rental properties. I would tell you have lower down payments, but you also can have better interest rates. Interest rates on some of those houses can be 3%, depending on where the market's at and prime's at, but 2.5, 3.5, 4% on a house, which is way easier to buy those on FHA versus a hard money loan with higher rates and so forth, right? The big thing is it takes away the off the credit report, which allows you now to be able to go to a traditional lender and get more funding from not the government, but you know what I'm saying, backed by the government types of loans. And that limit they said is 10. For whatever reason, they came up with the number 10. And normally, for the most part, when you hit 10, you're done getting houses.
Right.
I think that getting off your credit report is a huge benefit for growth for an investor and for speed of what you can grow inside the houses. Let me ask you this: with your product at Bull Funding, if it comes off my credit report, God forbid, I default on that loan, and you guys have to take the properties back, does that go back on my credit report as a foreclosure?
Not if it's in your LLC.
Okay. So you can fund it inside of the LLC at Bull Funding, which is another massive benefit.
Right. Now, we don't want that, though.
No, not the default, but I'm saying funding in your LLC.
Right, but I meant the default.
No, the default, no one wants that. But funding in your LLC is another great point that you guys can do at Bull Funding. And this gets into asset protection in a great way, because when you pull it off your credit report and you pull it out of your personal name, and then you put it strictly inside of an LLC, now you've separated yourself from it. And even though a lot of times landlords will put the houses inside of LLCs, their names are still attached to the houses because they're the lender on those homes, and they're the actual, therefore they're on the deed, and their names are on the deed because they're the lenders on them. Or the borrowers on those mortgages there. When you do with Bull Funding, it takes you guys off your credit report and out of your names and can put it inside of a LLC.
Right. Individually, you're still a guarantor.
Yeah.
However, it's only if you default, then we can go after you personally.
Yeah, on the loans.
Right.
The other big advantage that I see on the blanket loans, and again, not everybody, just because you have 3 houses, should you go get a blanket loan. There's just certain people that need, if their strategy is based off of growth through, especially government funding, it is a great way to go about this side of it. But on the other great thing I think that Bull Funding does is the loan process is much easier. Meaning it's not like your traditional method where you have to have W-2s and tax returns and pay stubs and 6 months of bank statements and all this other stuff to financially qualify for the deal. Tell us a little bit about the backing, the qualifications, we'll call it, of the deal.
So we're just looking at the property. We're at 75% loan to value. We need the address to see if we'll do the property. If we like the property, then we'll do it. There's some properties are too rural and we won't do, and the mindset is if something happened with the market, then it's harder to sell it than if you're closer to the metropolitan areas.
Unfortunately, that's about it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the other piece of it, because this is where it gets different at. Most time when you buy houses from we'll call them traditional finance companies, what they're really basing it off of is you personally.
Right.
Do you make enough money to cover this note? Do you make enough income? If the tenant doesn't pay, can you still pay for it with all your other DTI, debt to income, that you have sitting on your personal credit report again? Inside of the model that you guys are doing at Bull Funding, that's kind of set to a side. And your personal finances are your personal finances, and it's almost looked at a little bit like even like an apartment complex deal. Meaning, an apartment complex deal, they're looking at it and saying, does the deal make sense? Because obviously, on an apartment deal, if you're buying a $55 million apartment complex, that one person is not going to have enough debt to income to be able to pay for a $55 million monthly payment on that apartment complex. And with the blanket loan, they kind of take the same approach to where the person is not so much DTI, pay stubbed into it. They're looking at the deal, and does the deal make sense for them as a lender, Bull Funding, make sense for it. And the rural area side, that's just more from an asset protection, or not asset protection, but protection from your guys' standpoint of not getting stuck with properties that you can't get rid of.
Right.
Right. Is there any certain states that you don't fund in?
Well, I don't really fund in Arizona or Nevada. Okay. I can. I just have to connect with another broker that's licensed there and run it through them. But it's all through the same.
Gotcha. So you can do it.
I can do it. You have to be really careful because I'm not licensed there.
Yeah.
You have to have a brick and mortar, and I do not have that.
In Arizona
and Nevada.
Nevada. So all the other states, and actually those as well.
Right.
But all the other states you guys can fund inside of. Is there any limits on the amount, like bottom floor? Is it 100,000, 500,000?
100,000 is for the lowest loan amount, and then the highest, what we are capped, but I'm able to do an exception up to 5 million.
Okay.
So what would happen is, let's say however many properties that is, and it comes up to 5 million, just over or whatever, but 5 million. You make after we close, you make your payments for 90 days, then we can go back in and do another blanket.
Of another 5?
Another 5, up to another 5 million. However, we just got an exception with one that was 2 blankets at the same time that was well over 5 million.
So there's exceptions to it. The rule of thumb for Bull Funding right now is $5 million.
Yep.
But there's exceptions that you guys can go around it or increase the limits on certain people through the process.
Right.
So $100,000. So if that, let's say that 2 people, so one person had 2 houses, and they both came in at appraisals. I'll make up a number of $115,000 for the 2 houses combined, right? You guys would fund those 2 houses in one blanket loan because of 115,
right?
Which is unique because a lot of times lenders, especially when it comes to rentals and stuff, won't go below like a 100,000 even on one house sometimes,
right?
Especially when they get into private loans and stuff, they don't want to go below that. But you guys will fund floor level 100,000, base level or high level 5 million,
right?
And let's talk about interest rates. What do they look like on interest rates?
Our floor is 3.99, and what I've seen come in based off of certain criteria, because people who are using this program are experienced.
Sure, yeah.
So the highest I've seen in rate is 4.9.
4.3.
And you can buy it down. So let's say you're at 4.9, it's 1 point to buy it down a half a point in rate.
Right, 1 point to buy down 0.5%.
Yeah, thank you.
On it. Because you guys are funding on 30-year?
Yes, 30-year fixed, 5-year prepay.
30-year fixed, 5-year prepay. Majority of everybody that does rentals is not doing it for short term.
Right.
Especially if you're getting the blanket loans. I think you made a point a while ago that's important to note is The clientele that's really doing this is the sophisticated high-end investor that understands the benefits of doing, they have that many properties and they can roll them into and do the benefits of it, which normally means they're playing in the long-term game there. So it's a 30-year fix at a 5-year prepay, which means you can't pay it off in the 5 years. Do you do 15 or 20-year loans? It's only the 30-year?
It's only 30-year. We can do a 7-year, but that doesn't make any sense to do 7 years because your amortization is 30 years.
Yeah.
Or 7 years. So that doesn't.
And no interest-only loans?
Yeah, we do interest-only. The interest-only is a cost of a 0.5 point.
Okay.
0.5%.
0.5% if you if you want to do interest-only?
Yeah. On the full 30 years. So it's not like, it's not a balloon of interest-only.
For 5?
Yeah, it's not like that.
Holy
it's
crap.
Actually 30 years.
It's 30 years of interest-only.
Right.
And at the end of that, there would be the balloon of the principal?
Right.
Wow. Wow, that's a crazy product. I don't know if I've ever heard of that before.
Yeah.
So it'd be, you could do a 30-year interest-only loan. At the end of it, the rest of the note would be due, or you'd refinance it, which is what everybody does even on 5 years. But you could set it up as a 30-year interest-only. That's crazy.
Right.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that in the office.
Yeah, no, I did not. I have to keep some,
Yeah, keep some hidden treasure, man. That's a really cool 30-year interest-only.
And people typically aren't going to keep their property for 30 years. So that's why.
Yeah, so normally they refinance because, again, if they even kept it for 15 years, normally equity, depending on where the market's at, normally has probably rolled back over and it's gone up again, and they normally cash out, refinance and cash out again inside of it. So let me ask you this. You were in the private lending sector for a while, and then you kind of, and you still do a lot of it, fix and flips and so forth if they want to do it. But you kind of hit this like niche market of blanket loans. What drove you into this kind of niche market of blanket loans? How did it come about?
It came about because everyone is doing fix and flips.
Yeah.
And the market's getting saturated. We still do commercial, which is on the same product basically. Same guidelines, same criteria of 75% loan to value. So we are doing a lot of those as well, but just no one's doing blanket loans. And I find it as a benefit to the investor, and that's my goal. My goal is to help investors grow their business. And the only way to do that is to get it off of the conventional market. And this is the only way I can find to do it. That's not costing 7-8%. I mean, we have those products where I can do a bridge if someone's going to do it short term and charge 7-8% percent. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy because you talk about business for a second, and in business we talk about niche marketing, right? And there's an old funny saying that says riches are in the niches. And I think it's what you have came across here is that a blanket loan product is so rare that's out there, and even the ones that I've had in the past are not only rare, they're freaking super difficult to actually like qualify and get. It's like, my God, I might as well just pay off in cash for what I got to go through to go do all this. Where in your product, man, it's like no tax returns, no W-2s and pay stubs and all this stuff. Super easy to acquire the loan. It's all asset based. It's inside the LLC. 30-year interest onlys on them with fixed. That side of it is insane. So you have this niche market, which is what I'm saying. Like, when I first met you, you were doing fix and flips. A year later, you're like exploding, and everybody's trying to get you to come out to their events and expos and so forth because it's a unique marketing. Talk to me a little bit about niche marketing to you and what it's done for you in the business sector so far.
A niche marketing just separates me from everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think in private lending, it's important to be different because if we're all doing the same, then it comes to why would you use me? Not that I'm not worth using, but
well, it goes. It's
just harder to sell.
I think it goes into one of my favorite books I've ever read is a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. And have you read the book?
No, but I have heard of it.
Yeah, it's an incredible freaking book, and I read it when I was in college, I believe. And this is literally Blue Ocean Strategy, where Blue Ocean Strategy is all about what you just said, which is the private lending market is absolutely saturated, which means the question becomes, why am I going to use you? Because it becomes supply and demand, and now as an investor, it puts you where there's 500 other of you that I could go reach out to, and now it really does come down to, well, why would I use you or Bull Funding or anybody else that's out there? And you start, and in that market, it creates the red ocean, because now who's fighting is the private lenders are fighting basically with each other to gain customers' business. because why would I use you versus this guy versus this guy versus this guy? And normally that happens the way, for the most part, for the way that for Red Ocean to work is lenders have to lower all their terms and forego profits to acquire said customers is the most common practice. Red Ocean strategy, or that's Red Ocean. Blue Ocean strategy, which is what the book is called, is where you go outside of what everybody else is doing and you go find a niche place that exists, and you exist inside of a blue ocean, which nobody's fighting over, and now it puts you in demand because everybody wants what you have, and no one else is there to provide that service or product or whatever it is inside of it. And I think it's what you have right here is you've came across, at least for a window of time, and it's always a window of time in blue ocean, where you're the front runner and you're in the lead and everybody wants you to come out. And it's why today when you came in, I probably text 12 different people and went and got another person in my office and brought them to you in my office, is because it's a product that is very rare. It's a blue ocean. Everybody that I know would want this, I hit up, and every single one of them said, yeah, for sure, send it over. Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, send it over. Which is what I think most businesses should look at is how in your business, if you're watching right now, how in your business could you become blue ocean like you guys have at Bull Funding? Talk about entrepreneurship for a second. First of all, how long have you been an entrepreneur?
Since 2003, I've been lending and owned my own mortgage company.
Since 2003?
As a broker.
So we're almost 20 years, 20 years into it. Tell me about one of the biggest lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur in those 20 years.
Not to reinvent the wheel.
Interesting. Not to reinvent the wheel. Okay, now tell me why.
In my 20s, I was all about, I know a better way, not easier, but I always had the answers. And now in my 50s, I'm like, and I probably got there in my 40s, was the wheel's already been invented. Why go a rougher route? Just expand on what's there. So it just was easier. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed the idea that I had it better, but I spent a lot of money and a lot of time. It was just being busy trying to recreate what the big guys are doing. And when the mortgage crash occurred in 7 and 8, I was a mortgage broker, owned my own place, had people working for me, and I ended up having to go to the big boys and work for them because I couldn't outbeat them anymore, right? Because the industry changed. You couldn't get YSP and you couldn't charge points anymore. Yeah. So you had to go with them. Yeah. Just beat them.
It's a unique process when you talk about don't reinvent the wheel, because and for clarify, it's not saying don't be creative. It's not saying don't be inventive. It's just saying in the process, sometimes entrepreneurs have a tendency to be people who that are labeled as know-it-alls, and they're stubborn as part of what makes them successful. But if they're not careful, they use it the wrong way, and they're fighting already an uphill battle to be an entrepreneur, and now they're fighting even harder because they're making themselves go create everything that's like, dude, it's sitting right here. So you can just pick it up and run with this instead. But entrepreneurs sometimes have a tendency, and I mean, I've done it in my past, to have to recreate everything that I'm doing because I know the better way. And in reality, it's just like, dude, take there and go to the next level, Still be creative and still be inventive, right? But when something is already built and you can use it and build off of it is an incredible process to it. Inside of entrepreneurship, I ask people, there's lots of different, I call them ingredients maybe, that make up entrepreneurs, right? And it's like baking a cake. And what makes up a successful entrepreneur is all kinds of different things. But there's all kinds of different ingredients that makes up successful entrepreneurs. What would you say are maybe the top 3 ingredients that you have found in your life as an entrepreneur that you feel like are probably some of the most important characteristics, ingredients that have made you successful? Or as you study other entrepreneurs, what would you say are 3 maybe top characteristics in your life that have made you successful?
Tenacity.
Tenacity.
I don't like hearing no, so I don't like saying no.
Okay.
And success. I want to be successful. I want to leave a legacy for my boys, and
so like drive
yeah.
into it. So 3 ingredients that you find in yourself as you look at the people would be tenacity. I think that's a word that is that has to be inside of entrepreneurs, and to me, it's a word that I always say there's two different types of entrepreneurs. There's what I call the serial entrepreneurs that are like, and that's the class that I fall under, where I have a new idea, new concept, new angle, new product, whatever it is, and I'm constantly thinking of new stuff, right? And I had one last night that right before you got in, I was talking to Sean about. He's like, "Oh my God, that's genius! Yeah, we got to go do that." And it's just I'm like a freaking machine of ideas. That's like a born serial entrepreneur. And then you have other entrepreneurs that are more, I call them operator entrepreneurs, where they're more really of COOs. They're less visionary, more operational based, and they tend to find like a product and just go build that product. And they're very good at staying in that product and building it for 20 years. And they'll build massive companies of the two different entrepreneurs. And I think both of them have the ingredient tenacity. But I think that the serial entrepreneur has a bigger dose of tenacity, because that serial entrepreneur is like, can get kicked in the face and fail, and it almost is irrelevant to them. They have so much tenacity that sometimes people would maybe even call them stupid, because like, do you not understand how much pain you're going through right now of the failure that you went through? Because it's almost like irrelevant, because the tenacity of getting to the point of success is so tenacity is so high for them that the failures almost, they don't feel it the same way. In your failures that you have went through, all entrepreneurs have gone through them. Do you feel that way, that as you went through the failure, not that you didn't learn from it, that's not what I'm saying, but that other people, when they might have collapsed them, for you it was not as big of a deal, or was it a massive deal in your life?
I think early when I was just a mortgage doing residential loans, my failures were harder on me. Where now I'm more methodical, and I can see out in the future than just living my life and my vision and anxiety of self-doubt, whether I can or can't do it. And I have to do it, but I probably won't do it. All the self-talk. Where now I'm not like that. Now I'm like, I don't pay a lot of attention to, I have the big picture, but I don't pay attention to tomorrow or next week, because it doesn't serve me any good. So I pay attention today and not think about too much whether I can or can't. I don't look out my eyes that way anymore.
Yeah, it's unique as you meet entrepreneurs and all the different lessons that I've learned and from other entrepreneurs, and that's a good one. Is a lot of times entrepreneurs tend to live in the future too much. It's again kind of is our super strength and superpower, and it's a kryptonite, is that we live too much in the future, and it's always like, one day when I do this, or one day when I get here. And one of the best things to do is, and you said this, have your vision of where you're going to go, understand where it's at, the star, if you will, the North Star. But from then, you just focus on today, and don't get too far ahead of tomorrow and the next day, because those aren't here yet. What is here is right now, in this moment. And periodically you pick your head up and make sure you're still aligned with your North Star, where you're headed as in your vision of your company and your life, but focus on living in the freaking moment of life that you're in, and you'll have a much, much higher level of success. Financially, yes, but honestly, emotionally and spiritually and everything, because you're focused on just being in the moment of present time, versus for years and years and years, I lived 2 years ahead, 5 years ahead. Okay, I know I got to do this stuff right now, but in 2 years I'm going to be, and I was always, and honestly it hurt my growth, because it hurt me when I was trying to lead my team. I was too far ahead of them, and I was telling them about this, and they were trying to figure out problems of today that I had given them, So that's a great piece of advice, is live that. Let me ask you this.
Well, real quick, here's a good analogy. It's like a ship going, like a naval ship or something. They don't go in a straight line, and so how I used to do things, I'd get really stressed that if I wasn't exactly in the straight line. But ships don't run that way. They know where they need to go, and then they kind of zigzag and go along their way. But what matters is they see what the view is, right?
They see where they're headed. They know they have it dialed in, and they know that along the way they have to be flexible and let things, the waves in that example.
It allows you to be gracious to yourself as you make the minor mistakes.
That's
all I got.
I love it, man. I was thinking about this, in the new year, on kind of what you're talking about with the North Star and the ships, is this has helped me a lot, is that, when you have your vision as an entrepreneur, you have your end goal, and I actually I stopped doing long-term visions, truthfully. I have more like life. I understand that side to define who I want to be in life, but really in business, I really live 1 to 3 years tops out. Just because in the world that we live in now, it changes so fast. Our environment, our situations change so fast. The economy changes and so forth. So I kind of keep my vision 1 year, maybe 3 years in some of the companies, but mainly a 1 year vision. And I heard this great quote that said, and it helped me a ton. It said, just because your plan fails doesn't mean your vision fails. And for whatever reason, when I was reading and read that, it finally hit me. It's like, holy shit, how many times in my life have I had this goal, this vision of where I want to be, and my plan to get there failed. But plans always fail. Plans can fail all the time of what's happening and where it's happening in markets. And just because a plan failed does not mean the mission failed.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times in my early careers I would create a goal or a vision of where I want to be, create a plan for it, and then go to the plan, and then because the plan didn't work out, I gave up on the whole dream and vision and it was like, well, my plan didn't work, so it must not be fit for it. It's like, dude, plans always adjust and plans always are changing. Because a plan failed does not mean the vision failed as well. Let me ask you this. I want to learn from you for a second. Tell me a little bit, two questions here. In your 20 years, what would you say has been the biggest kind of failure that you had to go through of entrepreneurship? Like, and I don't want all the details of it, but like, a big hurdle. We always go through hurdles and valleys and so forth. Take us to a kind of a hurdle or a valley that you had to go through, a failure you had to go through. And what I want to know about it is like, what was the problem that you had to face? But what I really want to know is, how did you overcome that hurdle? That's what we want to get to, is like, how did you actually, in that moment, in that hurdle, in that failure, how did you overcome the problem? The biggest problem
is actually hiring people.
Interesting.
And my issue with it is that I believe in people more than they believe in themselves.
Okay.
And the hurdle was to get rid of them before they caused too much damage in the business, and that was hard for me
of letting people go.
So
the biggest problem that you faced in business so far has been really having the ability to staff and hire
the right people, because you can hire anyone, but
sure.
people come in and say they can do and they really can't do.
It's like Doug, my camera guy, swear to God. Hiring people is a massive problem. How did you overcome that kind of problem, hurdle? How did you overcome, I'm going to use the one you talk about, letting people go. Like, I've always struggled with that, like letting people go.
Right.
It's so tough for me because I'm big into building teams, and I hate it when someone on my team is not holding up their weight, if you will, and I feel like I need to try to step in and try to coach, manage, push, and then to a certain degree, it's like, okay, it's actually ruining my days because I'm hyper-focused on trying to get this one person to get to where they're supposed to be, and it's bringing the rest of the team down. But I hate letting people go. It like keeps me up at night.
Right.
And probably because I'm a people pleaser, people person.
Right.
How did you overcome letting people go?
To trust my gut. And as long as I stay methodical in what I want, what I'm working on achieving, and the goals means that I have to trust that this is what's best. And my intuition and my gut is really right on.
How many times has your gut been right? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been right every time. When I try to go against myself and get in my own way,
and you try to like rationalize it out.
Right.
Because you have this like feeling of like, no, this isn't right. But then like you soak on it and then I'll start talking it out of how to fix it and adjust it.
Right.
And I think part of hiring, when firing people or letting them go, whatever you want to call it, part of the problem is, I think for me was really me making the mistake. I made the mistake, and it's me having to claim my mistake because I hired the wrong person. It's not that majority of the time, it's not that they're a bad employee or a bad staff member or anything like that. It just means what I was looking for and what I was needing, I did not convey that the right way, and then I went and hired someone that didn't fit what I really needed. whether I didn't take the time to define it, whether I didn't truly even know what it was, whether I was actually looking for something else. And laying someone off is basically you as the boss admitting failure. That's how I always view it. And as an entrepreneur, we hate failure. Like we hate failing at anything. It's what makes us drive, right? So that's a tough one for me, is letting people go.
Well, it taps into the unwanted and not enough individually. And so I've worked very hard on that area, and it's not so hard for me anymore.
What does that mean?
Well, when we hire, I believe that when we hire people, when I hire someone, I'm magneting someone of where I am in my world, of where I am mentally and emotionally. So when it's time, usually when it doesn't work, it's because it's really, you kind of shed that part of you. And so if I'm in a feeling needy, or then I'm going to hire someone that allows me to fulfill that codependency or the rescuing, right? So if someone isn't a good fit for me, it's usually, and I see, like what I said is, I see higher value in someone else. That means I'm volunteering to go into a codependent relationship to help someone grow and be better than what they see themselves.
Because I know they could do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't do that anymore. Like I don't look outside my eyes that way anymore.
Yeah.
That's
great advice.
Part of why I moved out here. I was just kind of done taking care of people.
Yeah. It's great advice because, like you said, I think as kind of entrepreneur world we live in, for us, the glass is always half full. It's never half empty. There's always a silver lining. We actually look for the silver lining when there's a cloud. We're like, oh shit, yes, there's a cloud. That means there's a silver lining somewhere. It's got to find it, right?
Right.
And then same thing though, which is a great attribute. But then we do it in people as well, where it's like, oh yeah, when you go to hire someone, you're like, you see what they could do, what they could become, and where they could get to in life, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna help hire you. I'm gonna help train you to here. And it's like, bro, my job is not to help you get you there. That's your job to go get. If that's where you want to be.
Right.
And it's like the same thing. Like we're talking about some healthy lifestyles earlier. I don't want to call it diets because I hate the word diets. But it's like. There was the saying that says you can't make someone, like you can't make your partner go lose weight. Like if you like, it's a weird thing to say, but like you can't make someone go lose weight. That's something that they have to choose to go do and see themselves where they want to be, and then choose to go do that.
Right.
You trying to convince your partner to go lose weight is a horrible concept. People do all the time.
There's no win on that one.
There's no win on that concept. Nothing but brutal attacks ahead of you.
Right.
But people do it all the time, where they're trying to coach someone to do something when that person doesn't want to do that.
Right.
It's a dead-end road, right? And I think as entrepreneurs, we see that potential, but that's irrelevant. It's only if do they see the potential.
Right.
And if they don't see the potential and they don't want to get to that potential, you are wasting your time.
Right.
Into it, and now you just joined a massive codependent relationship.
Right, and that's across the board. That's not just hiring. That's just if we volunteer to go into a codependent relationship, we don't just do that in one thread of our life. We do it through the whole life in every section.
Friends, partners, business partners, associates.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. We are almost manifesting codependent relationships everywhere we go.
And all that comes from worthiness.
Yep, self-worth.
Yep.
Of it.
Yep.
I think self-worth is one of the trickiest components until you understand it. Is one of the trickiest things that, I think most entrepreneurs, I actually would tell you, that are out there that are starting their companies, it's probably one of the biggest things they actually struggle with is actually understanding what true self-worth, self-value really is for themselves. And until you can understand that, it's hard to truthfully grow because you're always looking for something. You're always looking to get to the next level, to get to the next phase, whatever it may be, because you feel like if you get there, now you're validated. Now you have self-worth. And dude, that's not true at all. That's actually 100% the opposite of what self-worth is. In that manner, you're allowing someone else to dictate what you think self-worth is.
Right.
And what you'll sadly find out is that goalpost will always change. And when you get to where you think it validates you, you'll only find it changes again. In a relationship, in a business, it just changes again, right?
Right.
Any tips or information on self-worth that you've learned in the past as an entrepreneur that could help people? Of how to determine it or how to learn about it?
What I did and have been working on this mission. So I was raised in a particular lifestyle from being young up until 6 before I came to Washington State. And so that's where the lack of came to be. So what I went and did is I sought out every person from my past that had done whatever they done and asked for an apology. Very straight up, I want an apology for what you did and why. And I started on this path younger, and I got it. The most cleanest one was actually from, so I was raised in, I was a little bit in the Hells Angels, like I was raised in that environment. So my stepdad at that time was he was the cleanest apology. He was in the VA hospital, like had gone through their AA program and was waiting for me to come out.
Wow.
And he didn't, it was just a clean apology. Like not many people apologize that cleanly. So then I continued on and actually started even before then. Found out, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so the last piece, right, because life is like an onion and you have your outer nucleus kind of thing. Well, I went all the way to the core and realized the people that I was attracting, whether business or relationships, any of that, was because I could not have ever attracted anything different because of my core. My core issue was my mother. So I reached out to her and asked for an apology so I could forgive me and forgive her. And I got it. It was, you know, she said, I'm sorry and I apologize, which not everyone knows to use both those words together, right? Because they're different meaning. And then, it took a little bit of time to have all that kind of go through, change my belief, because that's really what it came to. I changed my beliefs on it, whether it meant anything or not. I believe that I forgave her and forgave me, and now I don't look outside my eyes as I'm not enough. I don't tolerate as much. I used to be very, very willing to have people talk to me a certain way. I don't do that anymore. But I don't even think about it. Like I don't even have anxiety at all. And I've jumped out of a plane since I've been in Utah, ready to go again this spring in Moab. So I'm excited. But those are things that didn't, you know, I would never have done. But it's working my way down to everyone that had hurt me and getting an apology. I mean, because when it wasn't just as simple as like asking for an apology, I wrote out my story of things that she didn't know that I knew. And then read it. So the idea is that you read it, you feel some feelings, you won't feel as much when you do it on your own. But then you read it to a friend. And then as you're reading it, that's when emotions, because now you're being vulnerable to someone else, of knowing something about you that no one else knows. And then I read it to another friend, and then I kept reading it over and over until there was no energy to that story anymore. And then I sent it off after reading it that much. You're really proofing it because it's like your final letter, and you have to be okay with whatever occurs. And she apologized, and she's blocked me, and we don't talk. We didn't really talk anyway, so I didn't lose anything. So as long as I didn't put any meaning that I was being rejected again, it was nothing really changed. But I got my apology. That's really what I wanted.
Interesting.
So my belief system about me, of not being enough or not being wanted, is all gone.
I totally agree. I mean, it's like self-worth for an investor or for an entrepreneur or let me back up, for a human is extremely, extremely important. And it's one of the trickiest things in life that we don't understand and that we're constantly seeking. And you'll seek it until the day you die. People will constantly seek self-worth and getting money will not give you self-worth. Having a partner or husband, wife won't give you self-worth. Having children won't give you self-worth. Self-worth only can come from within, and it has to come from within. And until you understand that and can get to self-worth, you're always playing a chasing game. That's just a big circle that you're running around. Oh, you talk about the rat race in money. The rat race is in understanding your value as a human, and accepting the value that you bring, and this is your self-worth. I think it's a big thing that entrepreneurs truly struggle with, and I think entrepreneurs struggle with it more than a regular everyday person, because they're willing to go outside of the norm and go pursue a dream and pursue something. And a lot of times, even when they're doing that, they're looking for self-worth and thinking, if I could get here to this point, my family will accept me now. They'll know that I am successful, and none of that, unfortunately, works at all.
No.
And there's a lot of help that entrepreneurs need in that world. Let me just get this. Let me come to the money is question as we go through here. Obviously, you deal with a lot of money at Bull Funding, and is the website just bullfunding.com?
Yep.
That's the website.
Yep.
So we had the money is signed and asking you, Kemra, what does money really mean to you? Actually, I had just deep conversation on self-worth, but what does money mean to you? Because money will not provide you self-worth. It's a human never will. And I think a lot of times the whole reason we started the show was because I think people had the wrong idea of what money actually was, or what it was going to get for them, what they're going to do with it, why they wanted it. And when you don't understand, have that North Star, you end up chasing it and never getting to it. So I asked you the question right here, what does money mean to you? You fill it out right here and then sign it right here and then give it back to me, and then me and you will talk about what money means to Kemra. You guys make sure she's filling this out. Check her website out at bullfunding.com. If you're especially looking for any type of private money, but especially those blanket loans for all your rental properties, bullfunding.com.
There you are.
All right, here we go. For Kemra, her answer is money is future. Money is future. Okay, I like it. Tell me about it. Let's talk about it. When you say that money is future, what does that mean to you?
Well, it opens up the door for everything, right? It's you're not limited when you have money. So it's future to whatever you want, whatever you want. I mean, whether you want lots of things or leave a legacy or freedom or power, I think it encompasses it all.
It does encompass it all because, money, when you say money is future, money has the ability to open doors. It also has the ability to create doors. Like, it wasn't even there, and now there is a door. And sometimes I think about it, when I think about that, I think I don't know why, but my mind flashes back to video games when I was a kid. And it's like those the chasing the princess or whatever, and the magic door pops up.
Right.
It's like, dude, that is what money will do. Money can create a door where there wasn't a door. It can open doors for sure, but I think it can actually create doors that you didn't know that was going to be there. Money has the potential for that. And because it can create doors, open doors, it allows you to make different decisions, and your future can go one way, or your future can change. Future can go down this road, and money has the ability to for sure do that. It also has, when we talk about future, I also think about money has the ability to create a great future, and money has the ability to create a negative future. Just because it can create a future does not mean it will be a good future. Right. That's still up to you. It goes back to self-worth. It goes back to who are you as a person. Yes, it can create a future, but does it mean good? Could mean bad. And that's why, again, I go back to you never ever chase it. It's never going to provide for you what we were talking about today a little bit on self-worth. But it will create a future for you. It's your choice to figure out, is that a good future or bad future? Right. That's there. But money has the ability to definitely, for sure, create a future. I mean, think about this. I can very quickly prove it. You came to my office today. You have this really incredible lending product. This was nothing on my agenda, nothing on your agenda. I didn't know that you had this product as of 3 hours ago. And you have this money product, and what happens is you walk in with literally a money a product, which creates future, which is what your answer is. And I called, text, literally got on the phone in front of people, brought people in, which created that money created a future for you of all those different deals that will for sure deals will come out of that, all those ones I sent you over. When that happens, that then creates a future for opportunity of, well, what does that relationship bring with it? Not just a deal, but then because these are all B2B type stuff, so then it brings more future, and then that brings more future in that road. And it literally happened today as we sat in my office today, is that money creates future. It did today, and it will continue to create future. So it's a very, very, very good answer. Very good answer. And then it all goes to part B, good future or bad future. That's up to the person. That's up to the person for sure. Kendra, I love having you on the show. Had a great time with you. Again, incredible product that I didn't even freaking know existed. I'm still kind of mesmerized by it. I'm sure you have some more secrets that you're holding right now, because I know, again, we didn't even talk about no tax returns needed, and we didn't talk about any of that stuff, no W-2s and stuff, but love the product. Glad you came out to the Money Is Show. You guys watching the Money Is Show. We'll see you next week on the Money Is Show. This is Kemra.